Hey guys, so we're here to talk about Blood Promise, which is number 4 in Vampire Academy. Nikki is already here,
Hi.
even though she just left.
No, I got something in my eye.
So yeah, we're going to talk about number 4, which is just as much as a roller coaster as number 3.
Yeah. How I want to explain it is that in number 3, she stakes your heart, if you will, and then book 4 is just like perpetually just twisting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky wants to be in the video.
Hi, Lucky Boo.
Hey boo. Now he's not happy that he's in the video. You're weird. Okay. So were you expecting Rose to go to Russia?
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised about that. I'm surprised that Dmitri made it to Russia as a Strigoi.
Yeah.
Because up until now, I mean, even in the end of Frostbite, you think that they're like wild, like feral vampires.
Yeah.
So that they don't have the capability to form groups and stuff like that. So to see how like the other side of the Strigoi is interesting in a terrifying way, because now we know that they're selfish and they only view things one way, but at the same time, like they could dominate if they got it together, you know?
Yeah. Well, and they're really good at making people think that they're still the person that they remember. Because even Rose faced that. She's like, well, it's still Dmitri, but it's not Dmitri. But it is Dmitri, but it's not Dmitri. Like.
Well, and she feels that way, especially when he starts fighting her.
Yeah.
And she's in a fog, like she's basically high for 5 weeks? Or no, she's in Russia for a total of 5 weeks. So
like 3. Or 2 or 3.
I think it was maybe 5 days she was with him. But it was enough that everything was just a blur to her, because there was a short time limit of her being in what's her face's house.
It's like
in order to
Galena or something. You had said Hank was reading as well, and he's on book 3 now.
Yeah, so he doesn't know anything yet. He doesn't know about. I told him it's jam packed, and even now, book 3 is my favorite so far.
Yeah.
For storyline and all of everything that happens, like all the action and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So with Blood Promise, like it's not that it wasn't a bad book. It was just heart-wrenching to read.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times, like every time they were talking about Dmitri and who he was when he was a guardian, just I cried like every single time they talked about like who Dmitri was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ugh, Dmitri. It's just, and then the who he became as a Strigoi was just so devastatingly heartbreaking. Like, yeah, he's alive. Like his heart still beats, but he's this monster.
Yeah. I think that it might be book 6 that's my favorite.
I haven't gotten there yet. So.
I know. I know. But like every book that I read in this series, like even after reading it 11 times, they all still get to me. Like I still bawl my eyes out when Mason dies in book 2. I still bawl my eyes out when Dmitri dies in book 3. And then we get to book 4 and I'm still just like bawling my eyes out. Like I even cry in Vampire Academy. Like it's just all of it.
No, for sure. How can you not though? Like again, Rochelle Mead is such a fantastic author, like hands down.
Yeah.
And she really knows how to play on emotions. She knows how to write on emotions to make you really invest in these books. And on that note, like Hank is on book 3, and he's like, this is the first time I've actually read a series. Like he's read books before, but it's usually like a one and done.
Yeah.
And they're usually nonfiction as well too. So like reading about like Hell's Angels or motorcycle groups or he'll read, like, books about, like, drummers, like, autobiographies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for him to actually pick up a series like this, and he is so enthralled into it, and I know he's a couple books behind us, but he's even going to work and being like, dude, this book series is so good. He's like, it's a woman's book series for sure, but it's not in your face a woman's series. So for wide taste of readers, if you like vampires, you're going to like this book series.
Yeah. Well, and see, I don't think that Vampire Academy as a whole has enough publicity or like it has a big fan base, don't get me wrong, it does. But it's not talked about nearly enough.
No, it's not like Twilight. Like if we're talking about like how popular vampire books should be, Vampire Academy should have surpassed Twilight 100%. Vampire Academy should have got all the movies for each single book, like that Twilight did. Because Twilight got got a movie for every single book.
Plus, number 4 was made to 2.
Writing compared to Vampire Academy is like night and day.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to garbage. Like,
yeah.
how is this not a thing right now that we don't have like 7 Vampire Academy movies? Because I'm sure the last book, Last Sacrifice, you could probably split into 2 movies like you do with any book series that turns into movies.
No, I think that this series would still be good as a whole in just one book, or like one movie for each book.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot of information and stuff in them, so I do feel like the books would have to be closer to like Harry Potter length, with it being like 2.5 to 3 hours long to get the full picture. Up until Shadow Kiss, those ones could probably be like 1.5 to 2 hours. But after that, they would have to be 2 to 2.5 hours to get the whole story.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk about Avery.
Okay.
Because I know when we went book shopping, I was maybe, I think, like 10 chapters in, so we had just been introduced to Avery.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about the bloodlines on who Adrian could possibly be with, and I said either Sydney or Avery. But as I got through the book, and like especially how Rose was feeling, like I don't know, like Rose feels sus, I feel sus along with her, because I honestly feel that my personality matches Rose like to the T, like attitude and all, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love this book so much.
Yeah.
And probably one of the reasons why my husband loves the book so much, because all the time he's like, she's so you.
That's awesome.
So when Avery, like when Lissa was starting to act crazy, you know, drinking a lot and just kind of being out of character for her, like I know we have read her drinking and partying and carrying on, but she was never really reckless about it, and it was kind of like a once in a while situation.
Yeah.
Like this, I'm reading about Rose going into Lissa's mind and seeing how things were going. I was like, no, something's not right here. And I was like, but I kept it up with well, it could possibly be that Avery ends up with Adrian because she is a Morai. And how Sydney feels about the vampires in a whole, it just didn't seem like it would really work, but that I could see Rochelle somehow making that work in Bloodlines. Anyways, so when Rose starts getting kicked out of Lissa's mind, I was like, oh, hell no. Like, no. And I was like, no, she's a bad person. I was like, she's a really bad person. And then, bam, she's a spirit user. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, holy crap. Like, wow.
She really...
Like that scene.
Yeah, she really blows your mind in that sense. Like, it's like, okay,
Literally,
we just found out she's a spirit user.
Battle, of course it blows your mind. Like, it just, like, my heart was, like, going.
Yeah.
Like, reading that, and I was like, oh my god. And then her mind literally blows up, and her Shadow Kiss bonded guardian, brother and guardian, go insane along with her.
Yep. And they're going to spend the rest of their life in an insane asylum.
Yeah. Now, for Abraham, or Abe, because at first I was like, I don't know about him. And then when she's in Aya, or where is she in Dimitri's hometown? And she's like, well,
Baya?
where's Abe? And they're like, yeah,
Baja.
Baya or something.
I think it's Baja.
She's Baja,
I don't know.
Baja, Russia.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, when she goes to Easter service, and she's like, well, where's Abe? And they're like, oh, well, I think he's Muslim. Right there. Right there. She gave us a little hint in book 1. She's like, well, I don't know anything about my dad other than that he's Turkey. We find out in book 2 that his name is Abraham. And then she makes a comment about him being Muslim. I was like, Abe's her effing father.
Yep.
And I was like, and that's why, and I was like, if he's called like a snake and that he doesn't work for nobody, then how was he hired? And then it goes into at the end of the book where she's like, Abe doesn't work for no one. Like, he did this all to make sure that you were safe and protected and stuff. And I think that if it wasn't Rose that he was dealing with, he probably would have like broken her kneecaps or like made her do what he wants.
Yeah.
In which case he was I actually ended up really liking Abe. I really did.
Yeah, he definitely grows on you. Like, from the, like, beginning, like, when you meet him, you're like, I don't know, you seem like a really big douche. And then it just, like, keeps going, and you're like, why do you keep bugging her? Like, leave her alone. She's just
like,
some girl. And then,
why are you so obsessed with her? She should be your daughter. Oh, wait.
And then he gives her his scarf, like...
And it was a family heirloom as well.
Yeah, and then she goes back, and her mom recognizes it.
Yeah. My favorite part was her mom is like, you know, you're a lot like him. No, he's arrogant. He's strong. Wait.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. That was so good.
Yeah, she definitely is her parents' daughter. Like, you can see it on both sides.
Oh, for sure. She has more of her mom's looks, but she definitely has, like, both of their personalities, like, positive and even, like, short-tempered negativeness, too.
Yeah.
Like, and that just makes Rose. And I absolutely loved, like, that she met her dad. Now, I want to know, are we going to see more of Dimitri's family in later books? Because how things left off with
her leaving
Victoria, with the sister, the younger sister, that just, like, broke my heart.
Yeah.
I mean, typical teenager, but it still broke my heart.
I don't think that we see them again. I can't remember us seeing them again. I'll have to let you borrow my 10th anniversary, because in it, from 332 all the way until 483, there's 4 extra stories. So you get to see one about how Tasha had to fight against her brother and sister-in-law when they became Strigoi. So that's really cool. And then you also get a story of Lisa's diary entries when they were gone from the academy. And then you get a story about how Dimitri and Tasha met. Because they didn't meet first at the academy that we saw in book 2.
After what happened in Frostbite, I'm just like, yes, Tasha's so dope as an individual, but it's like she wanted Dimitri as her personal guardian and like lover, and I was like, go away.
Yeah.
No, I don't like you no more. Please leave. You home wrecker.
And then the 4th story in there is my absolute favorite. It's about, like, it's just another add-on cute story of Rose and Dimitri. Before they got together, the school was having this, like, Halloween carnival-ish thing. And they have to go and collect a bunch, like, they're doing a scavenger hunt on the grounds. And one of the prompts is to get a CD from Dimitri. And all of the teachers are, like, they are aware of the scavenger hunt. And it's, like, if you get caught, you get detention and, like, you're punished and stuff. So she, like, goes and because she's one of the only people that knows that Dimitri doesn't keep his CDs in his room. And then they end up running into each other, and then he ends up helping her, and it's so cute. Like, I
Aww.
love it. It's adorable. It just makes you love him more. That's in the 10th year anniversary. You'll have to borrow it.
I guess so. I guess so.
Why do you think that everyone was concerned about her becoming a blood whore when she was trying to find Dimitri's hometown?
I think it's stigma. There we go, not stigmatism. The stigma, because that when you're looking for those colonies and you see it in every book prior to Dimitri saying no, it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks that if you're going to one of the communes, that's what you're going to do, is become a blood whore. And yes, they have that secret underground. Women are wearing like the tight dresses and dress all gaudy, and like their necks are all bruised and stuff. Like you can tell what a blood whore is or who a blood whore is when you see one.
Yeah.
But it's not like that at all. But because of the stigma towards it, if you're like unpromised or you're not, doing your duty, then that's what you are. It's just really narrow-minded thinking. But that seems to be how a lot of them are, especially the Morai, and like changing their ways and stuff like that. It's just like with any kind of democracy or hierarchy or whatever.
Yeah.
Why change something that's not broken? We see things as one way and it can't be another way. You can't have honor without duty. You can't live your own life. You're being bred specifically to protect us.
Yeah.
And that's just not right.
No.
No.
So then later on in the book, we hear that, who was it? Was it Sonia is his middle sister? Right?
The one who has the child, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Sonia. We found out that she was with Roland, who now Victoria was trying to get with, and almost did if Abe and Rose hadn't stepped in. And the only, do you think that Rose only stepped in because she found out that Sonia had also had a kid with him? Or do you think that she would have anyway?
She would have anyway, because she was already uncomfortable with the whole thing, because he was hitting on her as soon as Victoria's back was turned. Like, he was literally a D-bag. Like the worst of the worst, and she didn't deserve to be treated like that at all. And it's just like, again, it's like the teenager thing, and the older I get, and when I see like my niece or something, or like even Peyton, and I'm sure when Peyton becomes older, I'll feel the same way, where it's like you're dealing with this major D-bag who says he loves you, who says he'll, do everything for you, but in reality, he's turning around and flirting with X, Y, and Z. Like, of course, like, you step in, you're, like, you, the adult, or the responsible one, is going to get the backlash and the blame pinned on. It's just, it's heartbreaking in a way that I've seen it happen, and it's happened to me, too. You don't, like, you want to protect the people you care about, but you can't always do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without repercussions, at least.
Yeah.
I think Victoria was a little too harsh. You're not my family. You're not my sister.
I think, though, after she gets over the initial shock of it, that she'll be okay.
Oh, for sure. And especially because Rose told Victoria about Sonia.
Yeah.
So I'm sure unless Roland used compulsion on Sonia to make her believe that it wasn't his,
I think that Sonia was more just, like, embarrassed about what happened to her, that she didn't want to tell anybody about him.
Well, because, again, going back to the stigma, you're a blood whore in that case. Did you let him drink off of you, too? Like,
yeah.
Then that's exactly what people would think. That's exactly how they're treated. You're not a guardian. You're a blood whore.
Yeah.
Oh, you got pregnant by a Morai? Well, you're a blood whore, because Morais and guardians just don't marry. Until we met the other shadow kiss and spirit user.
Mark and Olivia.
In that community. Yeah, which I love them.
Yeah.
So much.
They're adorable as a couple. They reminded me a lot of Rose and Dimitri.
Yeah, they're like, it's Mark and...
Except bonded.
Yeah. And they are just absolutely wonderful. Like the ideal, picturesque, perfect couple right there next to Rose and Dimitri. I agree with you on that.
Did you, like, were you shocked to see that there was actually, like, a building dedicated to, like, blood horrorism, I guess?
No, not really. Like, honestly, I'm really not, because it is still a Demphier community. Did I say that right?
Dampier, yeah.
Yeah, I said it right. I stopped calling them the vampires. No, I'm not surprised, because it is underground, and yes, again, with it going back to the stigma, that's what everyone assumes. But with any stigma or prejudice towards anything, there's usually proof that that's the case as well too. So, and in this case, I'm not surprised that there's an underground community doing such things. Like, Morai are also like those rich entitled a-holes who think that they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So you're not pure blood, so I can treat you however I want. You're just a blood whore to me. Like, I'm just going to use and abuse, get what I want, and then skedaddle out of there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of responsibility to be pinpointed in this whole shenanigans over here. Yeah.
What was your first impression of Sydney? And did it change?
No, I loved her. Like, she's just so just all business type. I loved her. I loved Sydney. I really did. And like, I know, and it's just like, it took me off like her religious bit. She's like, but she cares, and you can tell that she's like willing to be open about the vampires, especially seeing Rose and like getting to know Rose even just a little bit. No, I loved Sydney, and I loved her little note at the end that, thank you for letting me see that you're all right. I mean, you're still an evil being, you are,
Yeah.
but you're all right. And I'm like, she tells it as it is. I like it, but she's not a bitch about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think that there's a reason, like, I know that they kind of mention it in the books, but do you think there's a reason that, like, the novices aren't told about the alchemists until they graduate?
I think for the same reason why Rose didn't know about the alchemist. Because, and I know like the Unpromised that she groups up with and they hunt together and stuff like that, but were they calling the alchemist prior to make sure the Strigoi bodies were taken care of after? Like,
no, I don't think so.
That.
I don't think so.
And I figured. So I think the novices are not told about the alchemist until they are responsible for graduation, so they can't go out and be like the Unpromised vigilantes going out and hunting for no reason. And you can see that, yes, they want to go out and hunt, and they have the right idea on how the Strigoi population should be taken care of, instead of hiding behind their wards and stuff like that. That instead of hiding, that they should be going out and seeking them and destroying them in order to stop. But if you give, like, I don't know, if you give them all the information about the alchemist, then I just feel like it would be an abuse of power. You need to earn that right to know about the alchemist. So I think they did.
What do you think alchemist training consists of?
Probably a lot of reading and a lot of chemistry.
Do you think that we'll find out more coming into the rest of the series?
I don't know. I think that if I am correct, that in the Bloodline series, where if Adrian and Sydney get together, I think it will go more into it. But as for this, unless, and because it's already been revealed in Blood Promise that there is a way to turn a Strigoi back.
Well, it's rumored.
It's rumored. But like I said to you, I was like, is it like a Strigoi vaccination or something? I could just see something like that. But like, and yes, it is rumored, but before I continue with my other answer, it is rumored that when Dimitri was holding onto the ring that was infused with spirit magic, a little bit of humanity came back.
Yeah.
So I'm fully convinced it's not a rumor and it's possible, because Rochelle would not do this to us. She would not take Dimitri away and then not find a way to bring him back. She would not do that. She just wouldn't do it. That is cruel and unusual punishment. Anyways, I would think that unless there's something to do with the alchemy in order to infuse whatever to bring a Strigoi back, I think maybe alchemists may play a role in that. I can see it playing a role in that.
Okay, so do you think that it's going to involve alchemy and spirit, or like just alchemy?
It depends. It depends on how it's done. Like, what if they need, like, are they doing it as a powder? Do they need to be staked in the heart? Like, it depends how it's done in order to reverse the Strigoi effect. So it's really hard to say. I could see it, I just don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
It was like infused like the powder that you like destroyed Strigoi's body, but instead of it destroy the Strigoi's body, you like infuse it with spirit, and then it's like you're normal again.
That'd be awesome. How do you feel that like, because they have humans that have turned into Strigoi as well, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that the humans end up regretting it after they find out, like even in that last kind of moment before the Strigoi would die, do you think that they have their humanity back for those few seconds before they're dead? And do you think they'd regret it?
So. I don't think so. I think once you've turned Strigoi, that you've lost all humanity, and you see it in Dimitri.
Yeah.
Like he's there, but he's not all there, and Rose explains it perfectly. Like, yeah, it looks like him and it sounds like him, but it's not him. Like, there's just like this piece left, and I keep calling it his humanity because that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
Because you take away the humanity, and it's all about power and control. And he repeats it all the time, and oh my god, I have goosebumps right now just thinking about it and trying not to cry. But the scene on the bridge,
mm-hmm.
where prior to, she said, well, why do you want to turn me? Well, because I want you, but it's not because I love you.
Yeah.
It was, we would be a good power couple, and it's not, for internal love and stuff like that, because I don't think Strigois can actually feel love.
No.
I think they know how to benefit themselves.
And manipulate.
And Rose, if you look at her without love, and like the undenying soulmateness that Dimitri and Rose has, you take that away, she is one badass. She just is. And she's a strong fighter, and we see it. She proves herself consistently over and over again that she's not useless, that she is worth her weight in gold, even.
Mm-hmm.
But the scene on the bridge, and I feel like that's also why you're asking if they get regain a little bit of their humanity, either before they die or whatever. But on the bridge, and she stakes him, and she's like, wrong answer, and she's I'll always love you, and he's like, that's what you wanted me to say. But it's not like, I don't feel like it was like a realization that he loves her, that, oh, that's what you wanted me to say. It was, that's all I needed to say in order to get what I want, basically. And it was just so heartbreaking. Like, I was like, what? I thought he survived. He can't die. And I'm like bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, oh, man.
Like, you gotta go through his death again.
Again? And again? Like, that was like 3 times in 2 books. Like actually, though, because I know he wasn't actually dead when she staked him with the chair leg.
Mm-hmm.
But and then she goes back and she finishes off Goliath, or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
Oh, and since we're talking about this right now, so Dimitri wanted to turn Rose into a Strigoi to defeat Goliath. And in the letter at the end, when she receives the stake, and I was like, oh, chills again, at that part, when she gets the letter at the end saying, now I have to kill you, like, you've made yourself an enemy to the Strigoi, so even if I turn you, there's no point because you're just going to get murdered, and if anyone's going to kill you, it's going to be by my hand. And it's like sweet in a creepy, dark, non-human way. Like,
yeah.
I think he doesn't want to kill her by his own hand because he loves her as a Strigoi. I I think he wants to kill her by his own hand because she refused him.
Yeah.
Because there's no loyalties in the Strigoi.
No.
There's temporary arrangements or agreements, but there's no alliances. There's no loyalty whatsoever.
No, there's not.
And like the whole plan was to kill Galia or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to pronounce her name as. But she ultimately did that. Like she did exactly what Dimitri wanted, except turn into Strigoi.
Yeah.
Like.
So going back into when Rose was going into Baja, I think that's what it's called, Baja. And they stop at that house overnight, and she walks outside because she gets that Strigoi feeling of like nausea in her stomach. And then she ends up somehow attacking them all with the ghosts. Why do you think that happens? And why do you think that it's going to affect her more than we've seen in this book?
Well, we see, okay, Mark explains it in the book, that it happens because she's shadow kissed, that she's calling upon the dead. But he even says, one who dances, and I'm going to be, like, probably not get this right, but one who dances in the dark may not, like, come back. Like, the more you dance with the dark, the more to the other side you go, because people who are shadow kissed have died. They have crossed over to the other side where they're supposed to be. I'm not surprised that by coming back to life or being, revived is going to not have any consequences to that. And the more you use it, well, that's just pulling you over back onto the side of the dead. And who knows, like maybe if you use it too much, you become a Strigoi in not necessarily the physical sense, but in a different way where you're not necessarily living, but you're not dead either. You know?
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the ghosts don't attack Rose. Like they kind of do with her migraines and stuff, but
yeah.
As cool as it is, and I agree with her. Like, well, they can help me. They helped her when Dimitri was chasing her, but it affects her when she does it, and I don't know.
Because you had also said before that you were hoping that her shadow kissedness would end up helping her fight Strigoi and stuff. So in a way, it does, but it takes a bigger effect on her.
Well, yeah, and it's like and in this case, like she listened to Mark, and she used it literally when she had no other choice. Like I get that, but it's still going to have the consequences regardless if you're using it for when it's an absolute emergency.
Yeah.
And even then, like she didn't do what she needed to do. He didn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's any way for her to make it stop besides wearing a ring, or something similar?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't really thought much about it. It's like, hey, that's there. That's an effect, and it's been beneficial for her, especially seeing Mason when the school gets attacked and shadow kissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I see it being beneficial, but it's just, I hope that, because we noticed that when Rose, and this is just my theory, since you asked me about it, but since Rose has been absorbing all the darkness from Lissa, that's when the spirits seem to be worse, when she's kind of sucking into that darkness. So maybe once Lissa learns how to heal Rose from that darkness, or and I'm already a little bit into
Spirit bound.
So I like with the jewelry and stuff like that, and putting the healing stuff into the jewelry. I can see the effects dampening or possibly all going away.
So
that would be really cool, just to call upon like all of the dead people to like fight your battles. Like,
yeah.
Attack! I'm in danger, attack!
Do you think going forth that we will end up seeing that Like, do you think that the bond between Rose and Lisa will end, or do you think it will always be there?
No, I think they're always going to be. I think there's always going to be the bond because you also see it with Mark and his wife that, she's learned how to feel him, and they can still like they're having a conversation in their head and carrying on about their day while his wife is still healing him and he's still taking the darkness away. Like I don't think that bond's ever going to go away, and I feel like that was it's very perfect for Lisa and Rose to have that bond.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to get stronger, if anything, that they will be able to have like conversations in each other's minds, which we kind of did see at the end of this book when Lissa's on the windowsill and Avery is using major super compulsion on her to get her to jump and kill herself. And then not you, and and I was like, oh yeah. Lisa hears Rose because she's piggybacking like a taxi or whatever, however they explained it.
Yeah.
I hope it gets like that more. I really do.
What do you think is next for Rose and Dimitri? Like, do you think their ending is that he's going to die, or do you think he's going to be changed? And if he does get changed, do you think that they're going to be together? Like, what do you think's going to come?
I'm not yawning because I think that's a boring subject. I'm yawning because I'm tired.
I've been yawning all video, so it's okay.
Yeah, I was yawning at the beginning of the video. I think he's going to change back, and yes, they are going to be together, and I hope it's just like, when Avery tried to put Rose into like a mind prison where she's together with Dimitri and they're like a happy couple and they're living away from like everything that she wanted in her life. I really hope that they get that.
So you think that they're going to get together? Do you think that there's going to be turmoil with Dimitri switching back if he does?
Like turmoil with like society as a whole, or like turmoil between them?
Well, between the society and like between him himself, like inner turmoil.
I think Dimitri's gonna have a really hard time. I think he's gonna be very anguished for the things that he did. When he regains his humanity back, because you're regaining your humanity back doesn't erase everything that you've done. Like, just because you change doesn't mean you don't have to live with your actions. Like, there's always going to be consequences.
Yeah.
Society, I don't know. Like, I feel a revolution coming on, and I really hope it just changes the outlook of the people in the book itself. Because we see it with Christian, who his parents are the ones who turned Strigoi, and he didn't. And in the end of Frostbite, he had the opportunity to turn Strigoi and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not even recognized for that. He's considered like black mark, blah 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 blah. What I foresee is Lissa becoming queen and like changing shit around. Like that's what I think is going to happen. And it's like, nope, time out of that old thinking. Nope. Get your mind out of that. And it's like, we can regain their humanity. We can change Sturgoid's back. And if they don't want to change back, then we're going to kill them. Like, we're going to deal with the problem instead of hiding from the problem. Like I said, I feel like a revolution is coming. I feel like that's what it's been building up to through every book. Like, yes, a bunch of other stuff is, happening, especially with, like, Rose and Dimitri directly. But Lissa's going to court. She's talking to the queen. Like, she's being groomed for like the politics and stuff like that. It's going to change. And things are going to change around there. It just is. I just know it.
So on that note, do you think something's going to happen to the queen, or do you think her ruling time is just going to be over?
I think her ruling time may be over because I just feel like that they were talking about like it was coming up to that time. I think she's going to try, or she could be assassinated. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like, so many possibilities, and then it doesn't matter which way it goes. Like, as soon as she's out of power, I'm going to be happy. Whether she's killed, turned Strigoi, or all of her actions, like her upper-handedness and abusing power, comes back and bites her in the ass. Like, she's not going to last as queen, not with how she's acting. Someone's going to kill her, she's going to die, or she's going to step down, or she's going to be shamed or turned. I don't know. There's so many possibilities, and I don't really care what happens to her. Just get out of office, like get out of being the hierarchy. Like, go away. I hate Tatiana. I really don't like her.
So let's talk about not Rose. Let's talk about Dimitri's funeral.
It was so sad. I laughed so hard. What is this? It's vodka. This isn't vodka. I've had vodka before, not Russian vodka. I was like, no wonder I can drink like a fish. Oh God, it was so heartbreaking. Like, I was like crying throughout all of it, and then it's like, I loved how like everyone just knew that her and Dimitri were together, and they're treating me like I'm his widow, and they're like, well, you are. Like, you can see it in your face, like.
Well, and just the differences you could see between at the academy, where pretty much everyone at the beginning was like, no, this is not okay. Like, that's not acceptable. Teacher-student relationship, that's not okay. Even though he technically, but even though technically he wasn't really her teacher, because they were practicing together and stuff, but he was more of a mentor, which I guess in a way is still a teacher, technically, but technically they also weren't being illegal.
No, because it was within the age of consent. He's only 24.
Yeah.
So, now does he technically age while he's a Strigoi? Like, does he stay 24 and like just kind of like gets older, and then when he comes back, they'll be like 2 years? I don't know.
I don't know, because like they don't seem to age as Strigoi because they become immortal, right? But he also hasn't been a Strigoi very long.
No, because he's only been a Strigoi for like maybe
2 months.
And a half.
Yeah.
And then for however long it takes for him to turn back, like what, maybe 3 months as a Strigoi?
Yeah.
Or maybe he passes his birthday and stays 24. Like, I don't know. I don't really have an issue with their age gap. Like, it just, it's not a deadbeat loser who women his age aren't interested, so he has to go for younger girls.
Mm-hmm.
They just happen to be soulmates.
Yeah.
And this is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
Let's just get this straight here. This is typically something I don't agree upon.
However,
this is the exception. It's also fiction. It's fiction.
Yeah.
You read about them and they get, like, they are so integrated into your life that they feel real, but at the end of the day, it is fiction. Like, there is no 24-year-old guardian vampire, hanging out with, and, banging a 19 or 18-year-old girl. No, she's 18 now.
Yeah, now she's 18, yeah.
Yeah, now she's 18.
Although I will say that one of my favorite tropes is teacher-student.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that it branched from this series.
Oh,
in all honesty.
Yeah. Well, it's the forbidden love. It's exciting. Like, I get it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But she is technically just in high school. So
Yeah.
Typically, again, this is the exception, not the rule.
Okay, let's talk about Yva. Yva?
I loved her. I loved her so much.
Wasn't she just adorable?
Russian.
Yeah.
She's adorable. Scary adorable, but I loved her. And then we get to the last box, and it was filled with garden bricks. What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I love her. I was like, that would be me as an old woman. It would totally be me. It totally would be me. And then she ends up that she can actually talk English, and I was like, you.
Well, she was 100% testing Rose. She's like, I don't care if he's dead. I need to make sure that you are acceptable to be his mate.
Well, I think Eva, because Eva has dreams,
Mm-hmm.
that she has premonitions, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And although they're not always right, I think because she says, no, you're stronger than this. Like, this is not how I saw you in my dream. I think that was more saying that maybe she had another dream before Rose was deciding to leave. And was like, no, I see you as this strong, warrior woman. And I think Eva knows that Rose is going to bring back Dimitri. Like, she's going to find a way to bring back Dimitri. And that's what I think. And that's why she was, like, testing her. And then, you know what, I'm going to tell you this, and you're going to go fight.
Do you think, like, going with your idea of Dimitri being turned back into a Damfer, do you think that...
Vaccination.
Yeah, but, like, do you think that the Academy will let his family know this time, because they never told them that Dimitri has died? Or do you think that Rose will call them, or do you think that they'll just leave it at he's dead?
I think that it's hard to say. I think Rose just absolutely loved his family so much that I think out of respect that she'd be like, I brought him back. And I think Eva would know as well too that it was successful. Like, she knows these things. She's a wise old witch, if you will. Because they treated, like, they don't acknowledge, if you've been turned into a Strigoi, you're dead. So, yeah, I would think that Dimitri or Rose would say something.
Okay, so going into Rose and Adrian, now that she's back, do you think that, because she is aware that Dimitri is still alive,
and he sends her weekly letters.
Yeah, but do you think that she's going to try and move on with Adrian and get over Dimitri, or like...
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't say that she's trying to really get over Dimitri, because, even at the end of this book, that, there's a possibility to bring Dimitri back, and I think she's going to hold on to that. But I do think that she's going to genuinely give Adrian a try, because he's not, like, when he's introduced in Frostbite, he's such an arrogant dude. Like, he just breathes douchebag.
Yeah.
But then as you get through the books, you start to genuinely love him and see him for his real personality. Like, he drinks and he smokes, like, to deal with, like, the negative effects of spirit. And, when you take that away and you see who he genuinely is, he's a really good person. I actually have grown to love Adrian quite a bit. And you see it when he visits Rose in her dreams and stuff like that. And, no matter how many times she's like, F off, I don't want anything to do with you. Or when she is being literally treated as a blood whore, he's like, well, something's wrong with your aura. Like, it's, like, really dim. I can barely see it. And what's wrong with you? Snap out of it. And then she, like, pushes herself out of the dream on her own when he notices the bites on her neck.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's going to genuinely give him a try, because he never gave up on her, even when she gave up on herself. Because she kind of did for a while there. She totally did.
Yeah. So let's talk about before Lisa finally ended up figuring out that she was being affected, which, in all honesty, she didn't end up figuring it out. Rose had to tell her that she was. But when they get to court with Jill, and the first thing Mia says to her is, well, where's Rose? And Lisa's like, oh, well, she's gone. She left me, like, blah, blah, blah. And then Mia's comeback is, you guys are just so close, even without the bond. I assumed you would follow each other to the ends of the earth and figure out the details later. And then Lisa just goes off on her. Like, yeah.
I definitely believe that Avery was controlling her at this point, in a way, because it went from where Lisa was like, oh shit, yeah, I would have followed her. Why didn't I do that? Because she felt guilty for that.
Yeah.
And then her emotions just switched just like that. Just like with her kissing Aaron. She has, like, no interest in Aaron whatsoever. Now, not mistaken, that they came from court. So I wouldn't be surprised if the queen knew that Avery was a spirit user and was trying to, like, manipulate Lissa to either, to, like, get Christian to dump her, or for her to dump Christian, or to hurt herself, or whatever. Like, I don't feel that it was just Avery's power struggle. I feel that it's, like, the queen has, like, a hand in it somewhere.
Mm.
So, that's what I think.
What do you think
I
about...
think everything was set up. I think everything was set up from the fight that her father has with her in the hall, that Lisa, like, automatically wants to, like, comfort her and be her friend. And I feel like it was all set up, and I feel like it was all done by the queen.
So now going into the 5th book, but still in the 4th book, at the end of the 4th book, we see that Rosa. That Lisa and Christian have broken up. Do you think that they're going to make their way back to each other?
I hope so. I mean, there's no Rose and Dimitri, but they were so perfect together too, like, in their own way. I really hope that they end up back together. And you can tell, like, I know we're not talking about book 5, but I'm a couple chapters into book 5, and they miss each other. They get jealous and stuff like that, and they just need to get over themselves and just get on with it. Like, calm down. You guys are meant to be together. Like, and I think Christian's being really unfair by still remaining broken up with Lisa, whatever you want to. Like, I'm pretty sure it's Lisa, but you keep saying Lisa.
I call her Lisa.
Okay, well, Lissa, because it's 2 S's, was under compulsion the whole time. Like, her out of control behavior that Christian didn't like was all caused by Avery. So why can't they look past that? Like, if I was under mind control and I did something shitty, and then I find out that I was being mind controlled, you know, I would hope that I would get a little bit of leeway. Like, not so many consequences for the actions that I could not control myself. Being drunk does not count.
But then you also have to think about, like, the Christian, in his case. Yeah, he knows that you were being manipulated to doing that stuff, but he also knows that you still have that back history, right? So I can see where they're both coming from, and, like, I understand, but at the same time, I'm just like, Christian, like, come on.
Just, you know, one of you has to give a little.
Yeah.
Right now. I don't know, since we mentioned Jill, I don't know how I feel about her. I mean, I know she's, like, so, like, innocent, young 14-year-old, like, fangirl. But, like, you shouldn't, oh, God. You know, girl code, you don't throw other girls under the bus unless they're genuinely being crappy people, like, and even then, like, it's not your place.
Jill never really liked Lisa, though.
Jill never liked Lisa?
No, because Lisa's always been a bitch to her. You see that throughout the story, right?
Yeah, but that was also part of Avery's compulsion as well.
Yeah, but Jill wouldn't have known that, right? Like, she's only a 14-year-old girl, so she's like, well, what? Because I don't think that Jill really knows much about spirit, because she's mostly on the younger side of camp, right?
Yeah, she's just about to be a sophomore. Yeah, but at the same time, like, that school is a rumor mill.
Yeah.
Things spread so fast.
Yeah.
And although sometimes incorrect, there's been a few times where correct information has gone through.
Yeah.
So it would have been whispered in such way that Jill should know, at least a bit. Ignorance is bliss, though. I think, you know, although she doesn't have, like, romantic eyes for Christian, and it's been established in this book that she has eyes for Adrian, but Adrian's like, okay, little sister.
Yeah.
There.
Do you think, though, that, well, one, do you think that we're done seeing Jill, or do you think that she'll continue to pop up?
She's going to continue to pop up. She's absolutely going to. I feel like there's a bigger story for her. Otherwise, Rochelle does not just introduce characters for no reason.
Yeah.
So...
Do you have any ideas?
I don't know. I don't know. Is, like, Jill, like, somehow related to Lissa? Like, I don't know. I really don't know where that's going to go. I really, really don't know where that's going to go.
So, in the ending of Blood Promise, we find out that Victor's brother Robert is a spirit user, and that's how Victor knows so much about spirit. Now, where do you think Robert fits in the story? Do you think that we're going to see them in Spirit Bound?
I think so, because of the name of the book of that one anyways. It's called Spirit Bound. So they are looking for, them.
Well, we know where Victor is. And the book does end saying we're going to break Victor out of prison.
That's a bad idea. Such a bad idea. Just go interrogate him. Become queen and go interrogate the F out of him. But I get that they're also on a time limit as well, too. So, but still, regardless. I don't know. I think they're going to be successful in their endeavor because they typically are. But I wouldn't be surprised if it takes till the end of the next book to even find them. Like, I just see it ending like that, being like, and then we found him, and he's sitting there, and he's, like, drinking a glass of whiskey, and he's like, you may want to sit down for this. Like, I don't know, I just see something very, like, theatrical about it, or him being, like, I don't know. I don't see him being a Strigoi if he had brought a Strigoi back, or he's completely insane, or he has someone who is shadow kissed to help with that insanity as well too. Or Victor is this bonded, shadow kiss, and he's selfish, and that's why he also got sick, because he was like maybe like taking all the darkness, and then he got this like rare disease. Like, there's possibilities are endless. There's so many like theories that we could just go on and on and on about.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many possibilities. But Victor is a very selfish person, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up to have been shadow kissed and decided to like separate from his brother in order to not have to feel the darkness, and not knowing that the darkness can be healed as well too.
Okay, so then going back into Victor and Robert's potential relationship, we know that they're brothers at this point.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a reason that Victor was going for Lisa instead of his own brother Robert, who's also a spirit user?
Oh, I never thought of that, actually. Huh.
Like, do you think it's just strictly because Robert's his brother? And he didn't want to end up essentially killing his brother?
No. Victor's too selfish for that.
Yeah.
Well, they talk about it in the book that spirit users have different abilities. Like, maybe they all have the possibility to do the same thing, but each spirit user specializes in different things as well, too. So Adrian can dream walk where Lissa can't, and, although he is starting to heal and stuff like that, there's things that Lissa can do that other spirit users can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Lissa didn't even know that she could heal the darkness inside of Rose. Like, this entire time while Rose was suffering, Lissa could have been healing her. So, I think each spirit user has, like, maybe a specialty, and then they have, like, other things that they're novice at.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen in the last two books of the series? Like, what do you predict is going to happen?
I don't even know. Like, I said it before, and I'll say it again. Like, expect the unexpected. Like, I did say, I don't know why I said I don't know. Like, I did say that I think Lissa is going to end up being queen. Like, hands down, I think, she's going to come into power, because there's no reason for her not to be. It would be, like, the perfect way to, if I was the author, that's where I would go. I think they're going to figure out a way to bring Dimitri back from being a Strigoi, and then that there's going to be the revolution where the Morois and the Guardians are going to fight alongside together. Like, I'm sure, like, there's going to be people who aren't going to want to fight, but I think sooner rather than later, they're going to realize that that's just not going to work anymore.
Do you think that since we're going kind of backwards now, we're going back to, like, before we first entered Vampire Academy, in the fact that Rose and Lisa are taking off and being crazy again, and they're going to go break Victor out of prison. What do you think is going to happen from that storyline? Do you think they're just going to break him out, find out answers, and then go back and live at the court?
I think if they break Victor out of prison, I honestly think that there's more to... Again, I really don't think it's a good idea. But I feel like more things will come to light as they go. And I think it's going to be like one of those really dramatic, like, listen here, Queen Tatiana. Like, let me tell you something, you overhanded biatch. Like, you are corrupt, and this is what you've been doing to our people. You're the reason why we're failing as a society, and da-da-da-da-da. You're the Trump of queens. I really don't like Tatiana. I really don't. But I do see them going back to court. Like I said, I really see Lissa becoming queen, rather of the current monarchy or a new monarchy of the new beginnings, because the way things are done now is just simply not working.
Mm-hmm. Do you
want a revolution? Sorry.
Do you think that we're done seeing the rest of Rose's classmates?
I can see seeing Eddie. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Eddie and Rose were both assigned to Lissa, or even Eddie being assigned to Christian, or whatever. I know we'll probably blah blah blah. I know we'll see Christian still. I know we'll probably see Gilmore and Adrian, and then I would be really disappointed if we didn't see Mia. Because you cannot just give someone such a good redemption arc and then just, like, write her off. Like, okay. I just don't see it.
So on that note, you said Hank is now on book 3.
Yes, he was really happy with the redemption arc. And even, like, up into Frostbite, when... you know, they're still escaping, and he's like, where's his redemption arc? Like, I'm at the end of the book. I was like, just keep reading. And he, like, stops. But he gets to the part where the fish tank starts doing its thing, and he's like, is that Mia? And I'm like, keep reading.
Keep reading.
And he's like, but she's a water element. And I was like, keep reading. And then after, he was like, so he finished that chapter, and then she was getting her Malai marks, or whatever, like her tattoos, and Hank's like, okay, I'm going to just stop reading now. I was like, you literally have one chapter left, just read it. He finishes it, and he's like, he puts the book down, and he's like, where's the next book? I'm like, I told you. I was like, now what do you think about redemption arc? And he's like, I didn't think it was possible. Like, Mia's mom gets murdered by the Strigoi, and he's like, well, Karma's a real bitch, isn't it? I was like, I'm just savage. Like, even I didn't think that, and I'm savage. But he was like Mia's number one non-fan, and he was like really happy with the redemption arc.
See, I find it really funny that, okay, I've read this series 11 times. This is your first time. This is his first time. But it's kind of like a cycle. Like, you're reading them for the first time, and we're talking, and you're asking me questions. I'm like, I don't know, keep reading. I don't know, keep reading. And then you're doing the same to Hank.
Yeah. Oh, no, keep reading. I can't tell you. Except I've been teasing him through the book. So I'll read, like, a sentence that's not really giving much away. Like, it feels like, makes you go, what? But you don't know what's happening until you actually get to that part. And he's mentioned that a few times. So if I had read out a sentence to him, and in this case for, not Shadow Kiss,
Blood
I ain't
Promise?
Shadow Kiss right now. Blood Promise. I read out loud to Hank. I was said, if it comes down to it, I'm going to have to kill Dimitri, or will I be able to kill Dimitri? And Hank's like, what is going on? Is he a Strigoi? Is he dead? Is he not dead? And I know you mentioned it as well, too, that this was a really good theory that, is he under compulsion? Is Rose under compulsion? Like, and I was like, well, I guess you're just going to have to read. And because I've been giving him, like, little, like, not spoilers, he's been, like, reading a lot faster because he wants to know what the heck I'm talking about. Like, I gave him a tidbit in, like, Frostbitten, where I read out a sentence, and I can't even remember what sentence I read out, but I knew it was, like, big at the time for it's not Frostbitten, it's Frostbite. For Frostbite, he's like, oh, so that's what was going on at this point in order for this sentence to be, like, he's like, I had no idea what you were saying. I was like, excellent, I'll keep doing that. I'll keep reading out, like, these little one-offs. And, like, with the next book, Spirit Bound, I read a sentence about her giving Adrian a kiss. And he's like, what? He's like, and he's in the middle of frostbite at this point where she's messing around with Mason. He's like, man, she gets around. I'm like, don't say that. It's not like that. It's not like that.
It's not.
It's not. And yeah, no, I can't wait for him to catch up too. And I'm really, like,